Welcome to Nice and Blunt. My name is Adam Riancho, and it's Thursday, week 2. We have a game tonight between the Miami Dolphins hosting the Buffalo Bills. Who you going to start and who you going to sit? The only piece of news, injury-related, that is worth mentioning is Raheem Mostert is out for this game, and that's a bummer if you were counting on him, but Jeff Wilson is the guy to pick up. He is probably going to see a solid amount of work in this game because Achane is also dealing with an injury of his own. He's questionable. He's a game-time decision. However, I do expect Achane to play. Wilson will get some touches, though. That is for sure. It's usually a committee backfield in Miami. So that's interesting, but let's get going with these start-sit picks, where I think the most obvious decision on the week would be to start Josh Allen as QB1. Last week, he was so dominant, 4 total touchdowns, 2 of which were rushing scores. So Allen is never coming out of your lineup. I think he's always going to be ranked at number 1 all year long. And in this matchup specifically, he owns Miami, an average of 347 passing yards per game, 3 touchdowns per game, 1.6 turnover per game. That's 8 total in 5 games. 46 rushing yards as well as 1 rushing touchdown, an average of 28.5 points per game. He is a lock in your lineup. You were never considering benching him. But on the flip side, I think Tua is a bit of a gamble in this spot. He has not played well for fantasy against Buffalo in his last 4 regular season games. Remember, he missed that playoff matchup, so I'm not counting it. An average of 219 passing yards per game is pretty shitty. That's nothing to be excited about. Only 5 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions. 5 rushing yards per game is pretty much nothing. So he is not good. For fantasy, an average of 12.8 points per game is barely even like top 20. And I do feel concerned that he could burn you if you're counting on him. But I think after last week, I think you should start him. I think in September, he's always a lot better as well. And at home, this is really the only chance that the Dolphins have to beat the Bills. Like, their offense is revamped, their defense is banged up and has a lot of new pieces as well. There's not some established, like, full-blown chemistry with the Bills at the moment. So given they understand the weight of this matchup, the tiebreakers are going to be a factor at the end of the year. They were last season. They have to win this game. I think it's a true must-win for Miami. In Miami, this is their only shot. So I think they win, and I think Tua plays well, and that's why I am going to start him, albeit on the lower end of the spectrum. I have him as my quarterback 11, so depending on the size of your league, he's not an automatic play. He's more of a streamer, but with some high upside. We know he can throw for well over 300 yards, and I do think he'll get some passing touchdowns. Last week is only 1. I think it will be at least 2 in this game. So I'm going to trust him. I am hoping it works out. I can't say I'm like that confident in it, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I actually picked up Tua in one of my leagues. Someone dropped him in a 10-team format last week, and I added him. I am benching both Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams to start Tua tonight. I think it's going to work out, but I also have some extra karma. The person who dropped him last week is my opponent, and in that scenario, I think he's going off. He's probably going to fuck over the guy that dropped him. So I like that, but obviously it's not something that I can prove helps you yourself in fantasy. It's just my own good vibes in my mind. But I think Tua is a legit start. He's in my top 12 at number 11. He's worth your consideration. Otherwise, though, there's some receivers in this game that are always in your lineup. Tyreek Hill is clearly a lock every single week. He's my wide receiver 2 in this game, only behind Cooper Kupp, who had 21 targets last week. But Tyreek against Buffalo in his last 4 games with Tua at quarterback is not amazing. Only 11.7 points per game, nothing like truly fantastic. An average 8.8 targets per game, so a little bit less volume than we typically expect. 5.3 receptions per game for only 60 yards per game, but with 2 touchdowns, that does increase the upside, and that's why he averages close to 12 points per game. So I think he scores a touchdown in this one. You also don't have to worry about Tre'Davious White on the opposite side, so I think he's fine. I'm not worried about it. There's no way you're benching Tyreek. he was number 2 in targets at the receiver position last week, and that probably happens again. So you're never benching him. Don't get cute. And I think you're not going to bench Jaylen Waddle either. He's my wide receiver 13 in this matchup. And against Buffalo in his last 3 games, he's actually put up better numbers than Tyreek himself. He had an average of 12.6 points per game. He missed a game with injury last season, so that's why it's only a 3-game sample size. But 6 targets per game, 3.7 receptions per game for 87 yards per game, and a touchdown is pretty solid. Like, hopefully the touchdown hits, but even if it doesn't, you're getting high efficiency. Last week he had almost 22 yards per catch, and that probably happens again in this matchup. He's a big deep threat, and I think he could approach 100 yards receiving like he did last week. He's done that in 2 of the last 3 games with Mike McDaniel as his head coach. He has usually gone over 100 yards in the receiving department. So I trust Waddle's floor. If he finds the end zone, his ceiling is like 20 points plus, and I think you're going to be very happy with him in your lineup. I think Waddle's a must-start, top 15 option this week. But DeVon Achane, the running back for Miami, is also a must-start whenever he's healthy, as long as he does get activated for this game, which I do think will happen. I do expect him to play. You have to start him. He's my running back 5, and last week he paid off as well. And in this matchup last year, he was really dominant. In 2 games, he averaged 19.1 points per game, and that is fantastic. The volume was nothing like insane either. Only 9 rush attempts, only 2 catches per game, and a total of 91 total yards per game. So really effective. We know he has that game-breaking speed. He also scored 3 touchdowns in those 2 games, and that's something you can expect from him every single week. Achane almost always finds the end zone when healthy. So I am 100% starting him. We will get some clarity pre-game when we know for sure that he suits up, but I think it'll happen. I'm not too worried about it. I think they're benching Mostert out of caution, and they pulled out Achane of the game in week 1 out of caution as well, knowing that it would be a quick turnaround for this Thursday night divisional matchup against Buffalo. It's a must-win, and Achane is one of their best players. I think he plays. I think he's dominant. You have to start him if you have DeVon Achane. So he's a top 5 running back. And then I also think Dalton Kincaid is still a top 5 tight end. I know last week was terrible, only 2 targets, 1 catch for 11 yards, and he put up a bagel until midway through the 4th quarter. So really, really ugly game from Kincaid. However, I think it was a fluke. I don't think that's going to be the case for him all year long. If we look back to last year in this matchup against the Dolphins with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator, he was fantastic. 8 targets, 7 catches for 84 yards, 11.9 points without a touchdown, is going to be an elite score at tight end this week if it repeats. So I think last week was a bit of a smokescreen regarding Kincaid. I do see a big bounce back for him. He was a 1st-round pick at the end of the day, and I really trust his talent. He was one of my favorite tight ends entering the year, and I'm going to trust the process. I still think you have to start him, and I ranked him as such. He's still in my top 5. Kincaid is a must start, but if he sucks again, I will probably hit the panic button. Wasn't excited about last week's usage, but I think it works out. I think they get him going, and I think they probably give him a touchdown to ease the concerns that other people have, especially the fantasy community, regarding Kincaid. So I trust him. I think he'll be fine. I believe in him as a player, but I'm also going to start James Cook, the Buffalo Bills running back, kind of because I have to. If you drafted him, it was inside the top 15 at the position, and while I don't think he returns on that value, he's just my RB17 this week. It's mainly because of the matchup. Last year, he only scored 1 touchdown in 2 games, an average of 10.8 points per game, and he was a little bit better at home than on the road. The Dolphins have a somewhat decent run defense. They kind of shut down Travis Etienne last week, but they did give up quite a lot of efficient yards to Tank Bigsby. So that is a little bit of a toss-up. I'm not really convinced what this matchup will look like, but last year he only averaged 10.8 points per game on 12.5 rush attempts per game, 2.5 targets and receptions per game, 65 yards per game, and, only 1 touchdown. It's not like ideal. The touchdown is very important for his upside. And last week that did not hit. Josh Allen vultured 2 rushing touchdowns, and I'm going to be worried about that for Cook all year long. But what I am not worried about is the workload. The volume was there for Cook last week. 22 total touches in week 1, 19 rush attempts, 3 catches on 3 targets, and that I think will continue all season long. They're going to lean on him at around a 20 touch per game average. So I believe that's what you have to trust with Cook. I don't love the touchdown upside here, but I do think from a floor safety net standpoint, James Cook is a very solid, good RB2, and I do rank him top 20 at RB17. I think you have to start him if you have him, unless you had like excellent depth, and then you also added like Jordan Mason, for instance, then I don't think you are in a situation where you don't have the space in your starting lineup for a running back like James Cook. So I'm going to keep him in the lineup, but I don't feel like elite about it. This week, I don't think he scores a touchdown automatically. Otherwise, though, I think, as I mentioned, it's just 2 players with some streaming consideration. One of them is Tua as my QB 11, but the other one would be Jeff Wilson, the running back who's going to slot in for Raheem Mostert. There's also a world where Achane doesn't play, and we see over like 20 plus touches for Jeff Wilson. So if Achane is out, then Wilson's a must start. He would enter my top 12 at the running back position, and I think you'd have to start him no matter what. I would rank him above James Conner in this spot, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Achane will play, and that's why he's my RB29. You're not going to get many receptions from him, and you're really hoping for a touchdown, but kind of like Raheem Mostert, that's probably something that you can bet on with like relatively decent confidence. So I have him right behind Ezekiel Elliott, also another decent goal line back with limited volume and pass catching ability. So you could do worse. You're probably going to bench him most likely, but if you're counting on Mostert and you picked up Jeff Wilson, then he's probably going to be in your lineup as a low-end flex play. Really the cutoff point, though, I don't think I'd start another running back I have ranked behind him, but given the situation, the circumstance of him playing in this one, I think he's a decent top 30 play. You could do far worse than Jeff Wilson, I'll put it that way. Otherwise, though, I think I'm benching every other player. The one that kind of piques my interest is my dark horse candidate for this matchup. Last week, it was Isaiah Likely, and that worked out. This week, it's Keon Coleman, my wide receiver 43 of the Buffalo Bills. Last week, he led the Bills in targets with 5, but 5 isn't like amazing. 5 is nothing to really be like that confident about. However, I say this, meanwhile, Jaylen Waddle also had 5 targets last week. So who knows? Maybe it works out. I think he does appear to be the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen, but I think Kincaid will overtake him this week, and that's why I don't trust him. The touchdown is very important for his upside, and I'm not convinced it hits. I think it's a little too risky to gamble on Coleman at this point in time. But at wide receiver 43, it's not atrociously low. It is a decent option, and he would be my preferred bet of the 3 Bills receivers. But I'm probably going to pass. If he doesn't find the end zone, he's not going over 10 points, and that's probably just worth benching most of the time. So no thanks with him, but interesting gamble. And otherwise, I'm definitely benching every other player. Jonnu Smith did nothing last week. He had 2 targets, 1 catch, 7 yards, 1.2 points against the Jaguars, and there's no way I'm starting Jonnu. He's my tight end 26 this week. I'm also not starting Dawson Knox. He had just as many targets as Kincaid, but I don't think that happens again. Only 2 of them is nothing to be excited about. He's my tight end number 30, and unless Kincaid goes down, he never really offers much value. But I am a little tempted to rank Khalil Shakir a little bit higher. He did score a touchdown last week, but only 3 targets to Coleman's 5. I'd rather just trust the volume with Keon Coleman, essentially first round pick of the Bills, the first pick of the second round, as they traded back out of the top 32 in April. But Shakir did have an excellent game against Miami last season in week 18 with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. He caught all 6 of his targets for 105 yards. So that could happen. I'm not going to bet on it, though. I really don't think it's like a safe thing to expect. And with more weapons competing for targets, I just don't trust it. I'm going to pass on Khalil Shakir, but I could be too low. I could easily envision swapping Shakir and Coleman in my rankings, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with Coleman, who had more volume last week. But I'm definitely not starting Curtis Samuel. I don't even rank him top 60, so don't get cute there. And then don't even test your luck with the defenses. I have neither ranked inside my top 24. The Dolphins are my number 25. The Bills are my number 27 defense this week. So no fucking chance. I'm worried this turns into a shootout. And then both kickers are fine plays. I do think they're like top 12, top 15 or so, but I don't really rank kickers. And I think odds are you drafted someone that's more elite than Tyler Bass or Jason Sanders. So no thanks with the kickers, but I get it if you are going to start them. Like, well, let's move on. Let's not keep talking about the kickers. Let's just remind you of my start sit decisions. I think the automatic starts would be Josh Allen, obviously, Tyreek Hill as well, Jaylen Waddle, DeVon Achane, as well as Dalton Kincaid and James Cook. I'm a little bit worried about the upside with Kincaid and Cook if this does turn into the Josh Allen show once again. But I think based on where you drafted them, you have to start them. It's still early, week 2. You trust your draft day decisions, and you're probably not going to have better options on your bench than those two. So those guys, I'm definitely starting. I'm considering Tua in my lineup at QB 11. I think he's a legit option, but not an automatic start in the top 10. And then Jeff Wilson Jr., probably the last guy you would consider as a flex play. Odds are you'll bench him, but is a streamer that you could consider. If Achane doesn't play though, then he's a must start. He'd be top 12 in my ranks this week. But otherwise, I'm benching Keon Coleman. I'm benching Jonnu Smith, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, both of the defenses, and maybe even the kickers. But if there's one guy I would maybe take a chance on, it would be Keon Coleman, but I just haven't seen enough from him to fully trust. So that's it for my start sit decisions. Last thing to mention would be the final score prediction. And I do believe the Dolphins win. I think at home they have a shot. They know the importance of this game. And I'm going to give them the win. Final score 31-27 in favor of the Dolphins. So the spread is 2.5 points, Miami minus 2.5. And based on this final score, I do think they get it done. So that is in their favor. And I also predict an over on the point total, 48.5, I think will be smashed in this one. But it is worth noting the Bills in the last 3 regular season games have a 3-1 record. They have won most of the time. However, they dominate at home. They're 2-0, an average of 40-24. However, in Miami, this game is very, very close on average. 1-1 split, an average of 20 points to 17.5 in favor of Buffalo. So I could be wrong. It could be a low-scoring game here, but I think the Dolphins understand the moment and do capitalize on the lack of established chemistry with Buffalo. Last week, the Bills looked vulnerable against Arizona, and I think the Dolphins are a better team. So give me Miami to win. I feel somewhat confident about it on Thursday night. But that's it for the players to mention. But as always, I do give you a bet every Thursday on Underdog. These are my 5 pick'ems on the week, and I actually feel pretty confident about this bet hitting for $119. I only put down 3, so I'm not risking a lot. I don't recommend you ever bet anything you cannot afford to lose. Odds are it will not hit, especially when you have 5 picks. And if one of them doesn't happen, then you lose the bet entirely. So just keep that in mind. But these are my picks in this game. I think Achane, assuming he plays, give me the over on the touchdown. It usually always happens for him, and there is some vulture protection here. If Jeff Wilson does steal it, then this pick gets negated, and my max output does diminish, but it's not the end of the world. The bet is not over entirely, and if he doesn't play, if he's not healthy enough, then this pick gets thrown out as well, so no risk with this Achane pick. I do feel some risk with this Kincaid pick, however, but it's a scorcher for a reason, and it does increase my payout by 1.99 times, I believe. It was like a 2 times bet, basically, overall. So that's why I took it. I think Kincaid does have a bounce back, and why not just give him the touchdown? Last week was so bad. I think they want to get him involved and confident, kind of quell some of the concerns that their fan base and fantasy community might have regarding Kincaid. Last week was terrible. So I think he bounces back. Why not give him a touchdown? I hit the over on the Kincaid anytime touchdown. The James Cook higher, though, I feel really good about because last week he had 19 rush attempts. The over is only 14.5. So I really like that. I think he will smash 15 rush attempts. And probably by the end of the third quarter, I think this will be taken care of. So I love that one. That one feels very safe. I don't have to worry about the touchdown at all. This one is a little bit of a toss-up, but I think Tua will go over 300 passing yards in this one, so I hit the over on 275. It also includes the rushing yards, and that could be negative. That could fuck me over, but I think it'll be fine. Odds are he gives me like 2 or 3 rushing yards overall, so I hit the over. I think he will get it done with yardage in the passing game alone. So that one I feel decent about. And then the Josh Allen one rushing touchdown is one of the safest bets you can make on a weekly basis. Josh Allen has scored 17 rushing touchdowns over the last 18 regular season games. So last week he scored 2. Let's fucking go. I think it happens with confidence in this one. That one, the Achane one and the Cook one, I think are excellent picks. So it's all coming down to Kincaid and Tua, in my opinion. Tua should hit, and then the Kincaid one I think is like 50-50. So wish me luck. I hope I win, and we will see what happens, but that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. I will see you next time with another Thursday Night Start Sit next week, but check out some of my other videos on the channel if you need some help with your start sit decisions. I have rankings that I will be updating on Saturday when we have all the news regarding injuries. So that's it for me. My name is Adam Riancho. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.